All right, let's get to the really important story today. Everyone is waiting to hear
the world has been
updates about the Burning Man Festival. Okay, so for people who aren't in the know, it's this annual festival, happens really in the middle of nowhere, in the desert, in this dried ancient lake bed, 100 miles from Reno, Nevada is the closest airport, et cetera. So it's this sort of like techno, utopian, libertarian vibes. You go, it's supposed to be about community and radical self-reliance. And this year, they had a huge rain event that, you know, because it's the desert and because they're in this dried lake bed, created massive flooding and made the thing, you know, incredibly muddy. People could barely walk, let alone bike, let alone drive to try to leave. And so they actually closed down both the entry and the exit for a period of time. Now, people this morning, they have been leaving. The roads are reopened. People are able to escape now in whatever muddy condition they are. But let's take a look at a little bit of what was going on at its worst.
Now, roads leading in and out of the festival have been shut down since Saturday after heavy rain turned the ground into ankle-deep mud. Officials say the thick muck made it virtually impossible for cars, buses, and RVs to leave. Some people walked 4 miles to get through the mud and get out.
Drowning man update. We got 3/4 of an inch of rain.
Travel is impossible.
And there's about 70,000 people stranded on a barren lake bed. But fortunately, burners are badass and brought all the supplies we need. Or most of us.
We got people who came by bus camped on the edge of the city.
They're in pop-up tents and at risk of getting hypothermia. But we don't need outside help. We're going to bind together,
get radically self-reliant, dry out the furniture,
and keep the party going. The alternative is to fall into despair, roll over, and die. And we all have a choice in how we're going to handle this. So everyone open up your Starlink satellites so people can communicate with their families. Make an expedition to the edge of the city with food and water. And don't fight anybody because we're all in this together. Bury those negative thoughts in gratitude for your life because a couple people didn't make it last night. And know that we're all going to clean up this mess and get out of here. This is the hand we were dealt this year, and together we're going to get through it.
I love this guy.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it's kind of a perfect emblem of like the vibe of the people that are there. And I mean, I have to confess, I watched a million videos about Burning Man and what it looked like. I mean, it looked so disgusting. And you're like, all these people there and they can't empty the porta potties and it's just a total disaster, fire festival sort of vibes. But the internet was clearly kind of like obsessed with this. And I'm curious, Saagar, why you think that people were so interested in like imagining the suffering of the Burning Man attendees.
Well, A, it's an extraordinary situation. You know, I mean, Burning Man is a long place in pop culture. There's a lot of controversy around Burning Man, where originally it was kind of like a hippie festival, and then largely has been, I wouldn't say taken over, but a huge contingent of people who are really into it.
A bunch of celebs
like
go,
you said, techno,
influencers, or like posting photos of themselves there. And
a lot of them are
like
Silicon Valley billionaires. It became trend. It's almost like Coachella. It became one of those things. It became Instagram trendy. It became one of those things that became an attainable goal rather than counter really to like the anti-capitalist goal that was originally there. You know, there's a big separation between like real burners and then people who buy their way in. So I'll put that aside. I have some sympathy. I think it sounds cool. I'm not sure I would experience it. But, I mean, visually, it's just a stunning thing. And also, people love to see how people, especially Silicon Valley billionaires and others, like the idea of them like sitting and suffering in this extraordinary environment is just obviously humorous. I saw videos of people like Chris Rock and others like being able to escape Burning Man while the poor regular burners were sitting there with their stuff. But I actually really like that guy's vibe. He's like, we're gonna be fine. We're gonna be resilient. We're gonna keep the party going. And people I know who are really into it, who are not these Silicon Valley types, and others, that's very much the spirit I think that they would like to embody. I don't know though if the festival can recover. I was seeing some takes out there. Others, of course, they're going to keep going. But I mean, broader pop culture, like they were like, this really will put a damper on the future. And I think, at the very least, it does highlight something which has always been at the core of Burning Man, which is being 100 miles out in the middle of the desert. It's not a joke. You really do need to be self-reliant. You do need to prepare and plan for the worst. Krystal, you and I spend a lot of time outdoors. You know, people are very cavalier putting themselves in situations which can, you are the margin of safety out there is real thin. I've seen people 6 miles or whatever into the Grand Canyon wearing jeans and a single bottle of water, and it's 100. I'm like, what are you doing out here? Like you're asking for it, man. Same in Moab. I remember even in Arches National Park, they even have rangers there who are checking people to make sure they have enough water, and people are still disregarding it. Be like, no, I'll be fine. Like if you trip and fall, you're 4 miles out. What are we gonna do? Now they gotta go save you. And it's one of those where it is a reminder, I think, to everybody. It's like, look, look, if you're going to partake, not even in this activity, but any activity out there on the margins, like you need to genuinely be aware and prepared for a worst case scenario. So I think that's also some schadenfreude that's a part of this.
Yeah, I think the festival probably will recover, but maybe it shouldn't. And the reason I say this is it just feels like one of those things where its time has passed. Like whatever the original organic idea was that, you know, was a real thing and a community experience, et cetera, it's been sort of commodified. It's become more about like the, you know, selfies that influencers post than whatever the original conception was. And I think there's a couple pieces here. I mean, first of all, I expect that the people actually went through this, since their whole goal, in a sense, in going to Burning Man was like to have this extraordinary and challenging experience. Yep. They had an extraordinary and challenging experience. And so I suspect that the people who leave there, as much as we're looking at the photographs and videos and are like, that looks like hell on earth, you could not pay me enough, I bet they actually come out feeling like they got something out of the experience, would be my bet. There's also something about the level of privilege that it takes, first of all, to be able to, you know, take time off work and the expense. It's not cheap to do, et cetera, get the supplies, go there. But the also level of privilege it takes to feel like you need to add suffering into your life. Like you need to artificially generate suffering and struggle that's meaningful into your life. And so I think there's an element of that too in terms of how people are reacting to this. You know, some people are highlighting like the types of folks who are at Burning Man at this point. Neil Katyal, let's put this up on the screen, from the Surfs, who they describe as, he's a former Obama Solicitor General. But he also was the lawyer who successfully, in their words, defended Nestle in their child slavery case, dressing in what they say they can only describe as pedocore to build a mock courtroom in the middle of the desert perfectly encapsulates the essence of Burning Man. So listen, I haven't been, so I can't speak to what it's actually like when you're there and the vibe and the energy and what people get out of it. So I don't want to like completely cast it aside, but certainly the popular perception is of dudes like this who are wealthy, privileged, and have done evil things, coming there to pose like they're these utopian idealists, when really it's just about them sort of like play acting some struggle for a week.
Very likely. And yeah, I mean, there's also never underestimate rich people's ability to ruin everything. And that's very likely something that happened here. And of course, that's why the internet's been captivated at Schadenfreude, including Ebola conspiracy.
Yeah, there was, I guess I should say, there was one person who died, and they're saying it wasn't related to the weather. I mean, you got 70,000 people in the desert. Like the chance that and there's a lot of drugs and whatever going on. So the chances that someone of those 70,000 people might die is not crazy to imagine. It's being investigated, but it did spark a whole bunch of like, there was a conspiracy theory that the reason they shut it down wasn't the mud, it was because there was Ebola, and this spread wildly online as things do. So that is another part of why the internet was fascinated.
I wish them the best. Safe travels home. I hope you at least were able to salvage some fun out of it. That's it.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.